Hi there, welcome to Miss Ross's Math YouTube channel. This lesson is on lesson 5.5, where we will be learning about using the customary units of measurement and how to convert customary units. So first thing we need to do is look at this table that includes our most common customary units of measurement. Most people in the United States use the customary system, not the entire world does. So you do need to be familiar with the metric system as well. But first thing we're going to do here is look at choosing a unit of measurement to choose an appropriate unit of measure and be able to explain our choice. So when we're looking at all of these different types of units, we've got units for length, units for capacity, and units for weight. And our common ones for length are going to be inches, foot, yards, miles. Capacity is going to include fluid ounces, cups, pints, quarts, gallons. Weight is going to include ounces, pounds, tons. And then down here along the bottom, which we will need in a little bit, are some equivalents. So for example, we all hopefully should have this memorized, that 12 inches are equal to 1 foot, and so forth. So these ones will come in handy when we're trying to convert between different units. So here we go. Let's take a look at what they're asking us to do first, is to choose an appropriate measurement for the weight of a truck. So if I look at my weight options, I've got ounces, pounds, and tons. And ounces are pretty small. Pounds I would probably use for measuring like a human or maybe the weight of a couch. But for a truck, that is pretty heavy. So we're going to go with tons. And notice here it also says explain your choice. So I'm going to just say trucks are very heavy. Alright. The length of a hallway rug. This one could kind of go maybe two ways. I would say either feet or yards. Inches would be too small, miles would be way too long. That's about 4 laps around our track over at Middle School West. So feet and yards would be an appropriate measurement for this one. So we'll go with feet or yards. It depends on how long your hallway is in your house. Okay, so and then I'm just gonna say inches are too small. And miles too big or too long. Okay. All right, go ahead and try doing that same thing with these 4 questions here. Press play when you are ready to check. Okay, so for the length of a swimming pool, I would say yards. The school swimming pool that we have here at Middle School East is 25 yards. Not quite sure how long it is the other direction, but in most of our swim races, one length is 25, so 50 yards would be like down and back from the pool. Okay, so for the weight of a baby, some people will say that they would measure it in pounds and ounces, but if we were to weigh the entire baby all in ounces, that would kind of take a while. So we're going to go with pounds and ounces. Okay, and if you think maybe you have a brother or sister or a cousin, that's just exactly how people say it. They say so many pounds and so many ounces. Don't want to measure them in a ton. That would be quite a large baby. Okay, the length of a pencil, I am going to measure in inches. I have not seen a normal classroom-sized pencil that would be a foot or even a yard long. There are some long ones out there that they do make, but probably not as useful. So we'll go with inches, and all other options are too long. Okay, the capacity of an eyedropper. So if you think about what our options are, cups, pints, quarts, gallons, those are all too big. So we'll go with fluid ounces, which are much smaller. Now, remember, when you're doing this, these are customary units. So don't say something about meters or centimeters or grams or kilograms. Okay, those are the metric system. So you do need to make sure you're using only these customary units of measurement and explaining why. All right, moving on to being able to do some conversions between customary units. We have this term called dimensional analysis, and that's what we're going to use to help us convert between customary units. So, dimensional analysis, even though it seems like it's quite a large thing, it is basically just fraction multiplication. And we know how to multiply fractions. Okay, so that's the main gist of it. It is going to include the units to be able to convert one unit to another. So we'll say it's fraction multiplication with the units included. And it's used to convert from one unit to another. Okay, so let's just review some fraction multiplication. So if I had the fraction 3/4 and I was multiplying it by 1/3, I could either multiply straight across and then simplify, or I could look at and say, hey, look, this 3 and this 3, those basically cancel each other out, right? And then that would be a 1 and a 1, or they can completely cancel each other out and you can have nothing left over there. So that our answer would be whatever is left on top in this part of the numerator, and this denominator here, 1/4. Okay? So let's take a look at our first example. It says use dimensional analysis to convert 10 quarts to gallons. So what we first need to know is how many quarts are in 1 gallon. So if we go back over here to this chart, this is where these equivalents come in handy now. So it says over here we have 4 quarts in 1 gallon. So that is going to be something I need to write down here. So 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. So these are equal to each other. Okay, I am going to start with 10 quarts, and I am multiplying it by some sort of fraction. So I'm first going to write my multiplication and then a fraction bar, because I know it's got to be fraction multiplication. And now the next part is this equivalent right here is going to go into this fraction in a way that the quarts will be able to cancel. So if I put it on top, quarts times quarts, I wouldn't be able to cancel that. But if I put the quarts on bottom, they would cancel diagonally from each other. So I'm going to write it like this: 1 gallon over 4 quarts. Okay? And now I've got a number multiplied by a fraction. If I'd like to multiply a fraction by a fraction, then I can change this 10 to be 10 over 1. Okay? So I am going to look at this and say I can first cancel my quarts. So those both cancel each other out. And then I'm also going to look at the 10 and the 4 and say before I multiply these, I can do some division or some simplifying. So both of those are even. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And now when I multiply across, I have 5 times 1, which is 5. Don't have these quarts anymore, so now I have gallons. On the bottom I have 1 times 2, no quarts, so just 2. So it looks like my answer would be 5 gallons per 2, or 5 over 2 gallons, which is not simplified because this part right here looks like an improper fraction. So 5 divided by 2 would be 2 1/2. So that would be 2 1/2 gallons. So to convert 10 quarts to gallons, 10 quarts are equal to 2 1/2 gallons. Okay? So that's what it looks like to do dimensional analysis, fraction multiplication. Let's try one more together and then I'll have you do 2 on your own. So looking down here at quick check A, we're going to do it together before I send you off to do the next 2. So we're starting with 14 ounces. So 14 ounces, and I'm going to put that over 1. I know I'm going to multiply by a fraction. How many ounces are in a pound? Well, let's go look at our equivalents. If we look at here, it says 16 ounces are equal to 1 pound. So 16 ounces equals 1 pound. Okay, so where do you think I should put the 16 ounces? On the top or on the bottom? Think about that for a second. It needs to go in a place that it'll be able to cancel with each other. So if I put 16 ounces here, I would be able to cancel those ounces. So because 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound, I'll put the 1 pound on top. Now doing some simplifying, ounces cancel. Both 14 and 16 are even, so I can divide each of those by 2. So this would go to 7, and this would go to 8. Okay, and 7 times 1 times pound is 7 pounds on top. Bottom, 1 times 8, with no ounces anymore, is 8. So I could rewrite that as 7/8 of a pound. All right. Go ahead and try the dimensional analysis now on both of these quick checks. You're going from inches to feet, and then you're going from pints to quarts. And make sure you use these equivalents here to help you out with this one. So if you need to write down how many inches, there's 12 inches in a foot. And then you also need pints to quarts, so there are 2 pints for every 1 quart. Go ahead and try that. Press play when you're ready to check. Alright, for question B, 14 inches, I'm going to write as 14 inches over 1 times, there were 12 inches in 1 foot, so I'll put the 12 inches on the bottom so that the inches are diagonal from each other so they can cancel. 1 foot on top. I'll cancel my inches. Both of these are even, so I'll make that a 6 and this a 7. When I multiply, that gives me 7 feet over 6, and 7 over 6 is 1 1/6, so 1 1/6 of a foot would be my answer here on this one. Right, looking at question C, I might need a little more space here. Let's see if I have some room on the back of this page. Yep. Okay, so we're going to go with 14 pints over 1 times the fraction, and there were 2 pints in 1 quart, so pints are going to go on the bottom so that they can cancel diagonally. 1 quart goes on top. I'll cross off the pints, and 2 and 14 are both even, so I'll make this a 1 and this a 7. Okay, and 7 times 1 is 7, so that's 7 quarts on top. On bottom, that's 1 times 1, So 7 over 1 simplifies to just 7 quarts. Awesome. Alright, so that is dimensional analysis. Let's look at a question where we need to compare some items because they are in different units, but we need to see what would be like the better buy for this situation. So the question says, Store A and Store B each sell bags of cashew nuts as shown at the left for the same price. So the same price, so that's super important. Which store gives you more cashews for your money? So in this bag, there's 76 ounces, and this bag, there's 4.5 pounds. So those aren't equivalent customary units of measure. So what I could do is I could convert the ounces to the pounds and then compare them to see how much more I get in one of the bags, or I can convert the pounds to the ounces. So let's say take the 76 ounces and see how many pounds that is. We want to know if it's equal to 4 1/4 of a pound or more to be able to compare store A to store B to see which would be a better deal. Okay, so 76 ounces, I'm going to make that a fraction over 1, multiply by a fraction, and earlier it said that there were 16 ounces in 1 pound, so I'll use that equivalent. So the ounces are going to go down here, 16, pound is going to go up here, 1 pound, and we'll do some simplifying. So both of these are even, and they're also both divisible by 4. So if I divide, let's just go with even, so divide this by 2, and that's 8. If I divide this by 2, that would be 38. Okay, and now both of those are even, so we'll cut that in half, and that's 4. Cut this in half, and that's 19. And 19 and 4, okay, we're done there. Nothing left in common. And I'm also going to cancel my ounces, so I'm left with just pounds. So 19 times 1 is 19 with the pounds on top, with a 4 on bottom. So 19 fourths, which I know is not, that's not a mixed number yet, so we need to convert that. So if I take 19 divided by 4, that is 4, because it goes in 4 times, to 16, with 3 left over, so 4 3/4 of a pound, which is larger than the 4 1/4 of a pound. So this one ends up being 4 3/4 of a pound. And I don't know how many ounces that one is yet, but I am going to show you that we can make that one into ounces as well. So I'm going to do both ways here, just to prove it. Okay, so 4 1/4 pound is 17 fourths. So I'm going to use 17 fourths as my fraction, and that's in pounds. And I'm going to multiply it by another fraction. This time I'm going to put my 1 pound on the bottom and my 16 ounces on top. Okay, when I go to do some simplifying, I look at my pounds, those will cancel. The 4 and the 16 are both divisible by 4, so that goes in 4 times, and that is 1. Multiply straight across, 17 times 4 is 68, and that will be ounces on top, and there's just a 1 on bottom, so 68 divided by 1 is 68 ounces. So it looks like this one was equal to 68 ounces, which makes sense because it should be a little bit less than this, since this was 3 3/4 pounds compared to the 3 1/4 pound. So either way you do it, which store is giving you more for your money? Because remember, these are the same price. So So would you get more from store A or store B? I'm going to go with store B because either way you convert the bags, store B gives you more. For the same amount of money. Okay, so that's why it's important to know how to do these conversions, is because when you are buying things and they don't come in same size packaging, you really want to know how far can your money go if they cost the same amount. Okay. Now, if you have not already written in these equivalents into your notes, pause the video now and make sure you get all of this into your notes before you stop watching. But that is it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.